Hi, this is chapter 4 of Bertrand Russell's History of Philosophy, the book review, and the chapter's title is Heraclitus. I think the first thing I ought to do is explain my background, and that is that I'm a Roman Catholic who attends Eastern Rite Catholic liturgy. And so my practice is very similar to Orthodox Christianity, but my perspective is slightly different. And the reason why I said that is because I wanted to raise something with you, David, from your last video. And whilst you're talking about very interesting relationships and parallels between Heraclitus and the Chinese guy, you also used the word of God in terms of his name a number of times. Now, in the Catholic Church, we had a translation of the Bible. I think it's Jerusalem Bible, New Jerusalem Bible, which had those names, that name put in it, you know, the letters, the 3 letters. And when we used to read it out at Mass, it was really offensive to some people who believe that the commandment said that we should keep the Lord's name holy. And so it was suggested that when we come across that word, we use another word like Lord or something. And I just thought I'd raise that and make you aware of that, so that we don't go around scandalising people. So what does it say in the book, Bertrand Russell's book? We're introduced in this chapter to 2 new words: metaphysics, which is the nature of being, and a luminous axiom, no less, but axiom, and that is a logical statement assumed to be true. And if that doesn't put you off philosophy, I don't know what does. There's no point complaining about maths when philosophy comes up with such long words and such difficult concepts. Bertrand Russell says that the Greeks contributed to the discovery of maths and the art of deductive reasoning. Well, that's great. Let's just skip right past them then and, get through the next half of the book. Somehow I don't think that's going to happen though. And I think I'm emptying purgatory with my offering up of this book. The reason I'm doing this book study is there are 2 reasons. One is I know a tiny bit about philosophy, but not a lot. And secondly is that my gorgeous boyfriend knows a lot about philosophy, and I think I'd like to discuss things with him. And so this gives me a small bit of knowledge in which I can do that. Bertrand Russell also says, it is a mistake to treat the Greeks with superstitious reverence, and actually I agree. And I don't think we should use the Greeks as a moral compass either. What else did he say? He said, when an intelligent man expresses a view which seems to us to be obviously absurd, we should not attempt to prove that somehow it is true, but we should try to understand however it came to seem to be true. That's kind of odd, isn't it? Because as a Catholic, one of the centres of the faith is the Eucharist. That during the Mass, that somehow the bread and wine are transubstantiated into the body and blood of Christ, the actual body and blood of Christ. Now, that kind of, there's a lot of intelligent people who believe that, and it seems kind of absurd. But according to Bertrand Russell, we don't have to attempt to prove that it's true. But we should understand however it came to seem to be true. Well, it doesn't seem to be true when you taste it. You can't taste it. It doesn't taste like blood, and it doesn't taste like flesh. So I think you need to understand why something is. I don't think it's enough to concentrate on the seeming, because the why is the really interesting bit, isn't it? And the why we believe that is because, and I'm not going to go into like major apologetics here, you know, it's just because in the Bible Jesus says it a number of times. For example, he that eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me and I in him. And if you want to know more about that, this is a very good book, Theology for Beginners by Frank Sheed, and it's very old, published in 1958, so it's a kind of cheap little book. So I don't think I agree with Bertrand Russell there. When he does get on to Heraclitus, we find out that Heraclitus is a mystic more than a philosopher. He believes that fire is the fundamental substance, and that's kind of important because fire has this kind of dynamic aspect to it and almost uncontrollable aspect to it, and that's reflected in his metaphysics. There's this notion of cosmic justice which keeps this fire under control. Yeah, there's this kind of fight going on for fire. Apparently Heraclitus was unpleasant personally, believed in war, which again is reflected in that fire thing. And sorry about the voice. Also, that there's a notion that everything is in a state of flux, so everything's kind of moving and dynamic, and we can't, for example, step in the same river twice because it's obviously not the same water flowing. So Heraclitus says all things are flowing, and all things are, all things are moving. And in quantum physics, the worldview nowadays is that there's very small stuff, and the very small stuff moves around a lot and in a chaotic way. Well, that's one of the theories anyway. But we've also changed from this notion of all things are flowing to the notion of all things are slowing. And Bertrand Russell does in that chapter go on to astrophysics a little bit. And the things that he said, the theories have obviously changed now because there's this belief that the universe is losing its energy and will gradually cool and come to a complete halt. This takes aeons of time, but we're all running out of energy apparently. And I think it's a reflection of the age that we live in. I don't know whether it's to do with the media and news and the things that we put into ourselves in terms of information, whether it comes across that it affects our mindset or not. Although of course in that particular study that I mentioned, in that the universe is getting smaller, it's expanding and getting colder and will just eventually die. I mean that's based on observation, but theories are just theories. They're great, but they only last until the next theory comes along, and then the previous theory becomes unscientific. Anyway, I want to thank you for your comments, and I really enjoy your videos. Thank you.